Okay, welcome friends once again to another episode of the podcast of the Prayer Focus podcast. I'm really excited about this because I have a longtime acquaintance and becoming a good friend. I love what he carries and what he's doing, and you're gonna love him as much as I love him. I've read a couple of his books. He's a great Bible teacher, an amazing man of God, pastor, business leader, entrepreneur, father, husband, friend of God. John Burton, welcome to the Prayer Focus podcast.
Thank you very much. This is going to be good.
So back in 2012, and I don't know your season, but I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself, but I want to give just a little bit of a backdrop of how I got to meet you. And then we exchanged some emails back and forth. And then you sent me I think you sent me two of your books, your prayer book, the intercession revelation book. What's that?
Revelation driven prayer. Yeah.
Yeah, that one. Yes, that's good. I've read that several times. I've given that to some of my uh, mentees that I was mentoring along the way, and it's just been a great discussion. But especially the graphic in there that you created around Gideon, which is we'll go into that as we go, maybe if we get there. But in 2012 you reached out to me because I was planting a house of prayer and I was beginning to connect with and build friendships with people out of the International House of Prayer. And through that, I don't know exactly how you got my name and number, but one day you called me. I think we connected maybe on Facebook and then we had a conversation. I was really, really inexperienced in what God was doing in the House of Prayer movement and creating communities of prayer. But that conversation really gave me some language for what we did in our house of prayer environment. And as I read your books, the Lord just began to speak and to give, I don't know, I began to galvanize my spirit for what I knew was possible, but I didn't have language for. So I just want to say thanks, first of all, for reaching out to a young man who is trying to reach and figure out how to do all of this. And your books have been amazing. So, tell me a little bit about introduce us to you. Where did you did a podcast for a while? I think maybe you were in Illinois or Chicago or something for a season, or up in the Northeast, and he ended up in Colorado. So fill in the blanks here. Tell us about you.
Well, I grew up in, excuse me, in Chicago, but that was early. That was I left when I was 13. But we planted three prayer driven churches and ministries. One in Detroit, one in Manitou Springs, Colorado, and the most recent one, which has been the most interesting one, is here in Branson, Missouri. And so we've done that, and then I was part of IHOP for a couple of years, and then let's see, we started an escape room business 10 years ago, and that is going very well. Written 11 books, working on number 12 and 13 both now at the same time. Actually 14 also. And so yeah, I wrote for Charisma magazine for many years, and so a lot of that going on. Just definitely a prayer dude and a prophetic guy, and just mostly a revivalist. Want to see just authentic wildfire revival, just completely scorch, the nation.
Wow, come on, come on. Okay. So I'm gonna grab my charge cord, which is just right here, and plug it in because I just got an alert. So learning all of the ins and outs here of the new computer here. All right. So so for quite some time, you were kind of maybe more focused towards, church environment. Was it what did you always have kind of a entrepreneurial thing, or is this a revelation that the Lord began to speak with you?
Yeah, church planting is, entrepreneurial itself, and so, it's always been in me ever since I can remember to build and develop. It's just what causes me to come alive. It's what causes the gears in my brain to turn. And, so we've been involved in that. I've been involved in that even before I was married, just in terms of kind of understanding that that's how I'm wired. And then, then the church planting happened and establishing a couple prayer movements, establishing a kind of a ministry intensive, all of that's going on. Then when we moved here to Branson, we were stepping out of vocational ministry, if you can call it that. And we knew that it was time to step it up in terms of the marketplace. And that's when we kicked into the business. And the business world has just been very natural for us as well, just in terms of just we love it. And it just, I'm not going to say comes easy. Nothing's easy, but it's natural. You got you kick into that flow, you ride that wave, and it's good. And so I'm much more comfortable in business than I am pastoring a church, because I'm not a pastor, and I don't truly enjoy the pastoral at all. But in terms of the Reformation, the Revolution, the revival, the prayer, apostolic, prophetic, all of that, of course, I come alive.
Yeah, that's amazing. So tell us, tell me a little bit about your journey into hearing God's voice, and kind of tell me a little bit about your friendship with God. How has the Lord kind of cultivated your heart over the years?
Yeah, boy. I mean, there's seasons and stories. I got to tell you, man. I've written a lot about those times in my books, and in my life has just been rocked by that process. You know, what I've discovered and what I learned early on is that the whole hearing God thing, it is not just something where you can casually pursue that. It just doesn't work. It requires radical intimacy, radical surrender. I mean, devotion at a level that is uncommon. It requires brokenness. I mean, just surrendering your dreams. I mean, God will take you through the whole mess,
Hmm.
to get our attention, to get to where He can talk to us. Because, we could have it one of two ways. We can expect Him to talk to us and tell us the things that we want Him to say, and boy, that's going to be a mess. Or we can align ourselves and rewire ourselves to where we can tune into what He's saying.
Yeah,
And that's a process. It takes time. And but those who do that, I mean, go deep in intimacy, that go through all of that, I mean, God starts talking in dramatic ways.
yeah. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but in your revelation driven prayer book, you actually use that uncommon sense and compared it to common sense. And you talked about when we're staying in step with the Lord, we actually have uncommon sense. So unpack that just a little bit for me.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I mean, we live in a very intellectual, logical world, and there's a place for that. There's a place for intellect. Of course there is. You're not going to have any Bible scholars if that's not the case. You're not going to have any of that. There's a huge place for even common sense. But within that, we need to understand that God, on a very regular basis, defies common sense. So we need to position ourselves in such a way where we are living the life, even being in the Word of God. There's logic and intellect associated with that. We're learning, right? Precept upon precept. I mean, it's a legit and important way to live within the day-to-day construct of our life, where we are just doing things according to the way that we think things should be done. We've got to give room for God to completely blow our ideas, our plans up. And it's not until we become familiar with that He really starts moving. If we are locked in to common sense and we're locked in to logic, this is where you're going to get a lot of your skeptics, or even a lot of your heresy hunters, or you get those that are just everything is brain, no spirit. And you can get in a lot of trouble that way. You've got to give God room to just absolutely defy common sense. And it's happened. I mean, I can't even count how many times, over and over and over and over again in my life, small things and huge things that He has redirected me on.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love that. I think that a lot of times what we if we don't pay attention and we just go with the flow, the things that we will get by traditional expression of church is that everything revolves around the church. And if anything good is going to happen, it's going to happen in a church service. And the Lord began to speak to me around 2018, 19, and then made it abundantly clear through 2020 because the church model went away completely for an entire year. Our town, we weren't allowed to gather, and there were people who were actually ready to report you and turn you in to the authorities if you gathered in more than 6 people. And so our my church model completely blew up in that time. And I realized that Psalm 24 was absolutely a true reality, is that everything belonged to the Lord and that God was doing something in the marketplace. And I had some of these on fire revivalist friends of mine who were leading in businesses, and they were talking to me about signs and wonders, and they were talking about salvations at work. And I'm like, they're not even going to church. And Lord began to blow my mind with the reality of revival that was happening in culture. And what I came to realize is that there is no such thing as a secular or sacred. It's all sacred to the Lord. And the Lord was working overtime. The Lord was releasing agency, whatever that was, over in an overtime way to completely remove the lines that Christendom had put in place. That if God was going to move, it was going to happen in the church. So tell me a little bit how you're experiencing God at work, God moving outside of the four walls of church. The four walls are important. Church is important. I'm not at all attacking the church, but what I'm saying is God is doing something significant and transformational outside the church. So what have you learned in that realm?
Well, there's I think sometimes we need to reevaluate the way that we kind of judge effectiveness, in our lives. Uh, the obvious way to judge effectiveness would be filled altars and hands being raised for salvation and maybe a growing church and all that. That's very obvious. And well, what are some other ways that God can advance his kingdom? I believe the marketplace very much is one of those ways. And so, for example, with our business, yeah, we've got scriptures on the wall. Yes, it's a wholesome environment. Definitely, we just when we're there, the times we're there working, I mean, we're just releasing the love and the life of Jesus, and just in the moment by moment. And but I look, you know, at the culture that we've developed, the business we've developed, is that God's favor has been on our escape room business, as an example. And you just can't deny that. You can't minimize that. It's like, all right, Lord, maybe we've tapped into something. It's not so much that we're preaching from the rooftops as I would love to do that. It's not so much that we are, having even maybe Bible studies, with our staff or things like that. It's a wholesome, healthy environment, and when people come in, they are experiencing life. And the favor of God's been on that business. We were at one time rated the number 5 escape room in the nation. And it was shocking and incredible. I'm like, that was not us. And just so what has happened in our business, just through our obedience to the Lord, to live via the Spirit. He planted that seed in us, and for us to lead with excellence and integrity and character, driven by faith, driven by prayer. There's something about that, and I absolutely know in our business that there have been a lot of lives impacted. Have we had an altar call in the escape room? No, but there's been impact. I can also look at, in a way, this is kind of a funny little thing, but especially now with social media going crazy, like my son Parker, he's about to hit 1 million YouTube subscribers. He has millions of TikTok followers, and so I'm lagging behind. We have a YouTube channel that we've been working on and off for 6 years, 6 or 7 years, and it's a travel channel. And it's just my wife and me having fun. And, I'm at Silver Dollar City here in Branson, Missouri right now. And, we'll come out here to the theme park and we'll walk around. And I've met some people from California just a little while ago who were so thankful for our channel, and people are all the time coming up to us. You can hear the steam train in the background.
Uh-huh.
All the time coming up to us and telling us thank you for your testimony, your witness. Thank you for your chance. It's not a Christian channel necessarily, but thank you. And there's actually somebody that we met on the channel that just got radically saved and delivered, and I baptized her here in Table Rock Lake in Branson, Missouri, because of a travel channel on YouTube that the grace of God was on. And so you got, it's outside the box stuff. Is it more, maybe what's the word, more exciting to have a big blowout meeting and the preaching's on fire and the worship's electric and the anointing's in the room and the altars are full? And I love that. I love that. But are there other ways, that God is doing his thing? And I absolutely, that's true. He is.
hmm I when we lived in Kansas City, 'cause we lived in Kansas City for a couple of years. Our most recent move was from Kansas City to Colorado Springs, and we had season passes to Silver Dollar City, and we would go once a month for sure. But sometimes it was more than that. And we would spend, a week at a time in Branson. We loved it. I actually have done some real estate investing, and just over the border in Arkansas, not very far from there, I've bought in a bunch of property over there and done really good over there. But I love Silver Dollar City. I love that you're sitting there right now, because I had many moments of ministering to people in Silver Dollar City when we were there visiting, and I would interact with people and prophesy over people and ask people if I could pray for them. Mom's having a really bad day or a really hard day with their toddler, and I can just sit by them. I could just lean on them and just give them the presence of the Lord as their, so I love being a distributor of God's presence and character wherever we go. And I love that God gives us the invitation to be ambassadors of Christ, to be representatives of heaven on the earth in culture. And so I love that. I think the things that a lot of people want to a lot of my conversations, we co-reign is a global prayer and prophetic ministries for marketplace leaders around the world, and we place dedicated prayer teams around the main decision makers. We're mainly serve C-suite leaders, so CFOs, CEOs, all of the C-suite leaders, main decision makers in companies, and we come alongside them and we pray with and for them, and we give them confirming word of the Lord's for their department, for their organization, for their team, for them personally and their families. One of the questions that I'm constantly asked, John, is how do I grow in hearing God's voice? How do I know when it's Him? And how do I know it's just the wisdom of the world? I have the best practices handbook. I can look up what I'm supposed to do. How do I stay in step? And how do I know? Because sometimes God isn't giving you the best practice answer, He's actually giving you his answer from his heart in that moment. So, what are some things that you've learned along the way about being a presence led business leader?
Well, yeah, I mean, first of all, again, like I said, it's all about intimacy, which means intimacy. A lot of people think intimacy with God is just some sort of a ethereal mindset. It's not. It's deliberate prayer and connecting and worship and going through all of the stuff and developing that relationship. As an example, if I'm here at Silver Dollar City, and anybody can relate to this, and there's thousands of people all around, and maybe there's hundreds of people in this area right here, and from way off in the distance, I'm hearing kids and I'm hearing people and I'm hearing cries and shouts. But if I hear dad and it's my kid, I know it's my kid. There could be 30 other kids yelling dad, but if it's my kid, I know the voice, right? Same thing with God. It's in we have all of these competing voices and everything that's going on. But when he speaks, if we have that relationship, then it works. It's not, there's no flip the switch type of instruction that I can give. It's not a scientific approach. It's the art of relationship, and it just takes going deep. It takes consecration. It takes faith. It takes dealing with wrong belief systems. Maybe there's some deliverance that needs to happen. Maybe there's breaking. Maybe there's God speaking life into an area that needs to come alive. On and on. Just it's a huge, huge thing. As we develop that, it becomes easier and easier to hear his voice. And he kind of uses the breadcrumb method, meaning, we all love to pray, hey, God, give me the big answer. What's the big reveal? He doesn't do that. I mean, rarely does he do that. It's annoying as heck. I wish he would sometimes I tell him, God, just shoot me an email and give me the details. And he doesn't do that. He uses breadcrumbs. And so we're going in that direction. And there's something big and cool out there because I know it in my spirit, but I don't know what it is. I don't know how to get there. I don't know what to do. I don't know anything except I see a breadcrumb sitting on the ground, 3 feet ahead of me. I'm like, oh, I'm going to go that way. Not very exciting, not super interesting, doesn't answer many questions at all, except I'm supposed to walk that direction. And the Bible says the steps of a righteous man are ordered of the Lord. So it's that breadcrumb method. It's like, all right, now I'm here. Now what do I do? You wait and you wait. It's like, come on, God. There's another breadcrumb, and then okay, so we're doing the breadcrumb thing, God. Okay, give me the next one. Nope, you're gonna wait a month. Ah, and okay, just go deeper in it. I can't show you the next breadcrumb until you go deeper. I'm not going to show you that. You're not going to understand it. You're not going to have the faith to go where it's going until you go deeper, or until you do what I need you to do. And so it's that's God. He does things a way that it's not easy sometimes.
Yeah. The thing that I've discovered, and the thing that I've been kind of repeating, so the Lord speaks it to me and I'm like, oh Lord, that's really good. And so then 10 minutes later it comes up in a conversation with one of my CEO partners. They're like, man, I just feel like I'm shooting in the dark. I feel like I'm going in a dark cave by myself. How do I, and I think so often that we assume that God is telling us to go in a direction, and we just assume that we're going to go in that direction for a really long time, maybe even forever. And I think what the Lord has been speaking to me about, John, is will you just do a check-in with me? Because I told you that 10 minutes ago, but that doesn't mean that that's forever. It means that I gave you something specific for a season. So will you check in with me? And the Holy Spirit's been very gentle, very kind, saying, just do a quick check-in. 15 minutes, 20 minutes. Lord, what is it right now? What is it that you want me to be doing right now? And how can I believe that keeping myself on a short leash has actually helped me to stay in step and actually identify the breadcrumb trail, because I'll miss the crumb. I'll be going and is like, it's 10 feet over here, but I didn't stop and listen. Is that some uh, what have you discovered about being able to identify the breadcrumbs that the Lord is giving you?
Well, we're in a season right now that is a perfect example. And so we launched Revival X here in Branson about 2.5 years ago. And it was a dramatic launch. We'd been out of ministry for about 8 years. And in terms of church ministry, I still was writing and doing things like that. But, and it was a dramatic revelation that the Lord wanted us to launch it. Cindy Jacobs prophesied it over my wife. Emma Stark prophesied, and we knew that it was time to start, and we did. And God provided. We got a big dump of cash, right? A donation out of the blue. Just, I mean, miraculous. We got that. That enabled us to do some things we needed to do, and ended up or leasing a great property, having a school of ministry, and doing all the stuff. Very prayer driven, and just recently, we felt it probably for the last several months. Well, let me stop. Let me go back just a little bit. About 6 or 8 months ago, something like that, the Lord spoke a very simple word through a child. And he wrote this word on a whiteboard that we used for our prophetic sessions, and he wrote the word shift. And it wasn't just a word. It was like a sword piercing the atmosphere. And so we have known for 6 or 8 months that shift was coming. We haven't known exactly what that was. So here we are looking for the breadcrumbs. Well, so time's going by and we are just going through the process and praying and contending and doing the stuff. And about a month ago, maybe, uh, we kept feeling the pressure increasing that more shift was coming, more shift was coming. We didn't know what. And during worship, the Lord spoke to me and he said, "This is one of the last times you're going to be preaching like this at Revival X." And I knew that we were about done. And so I did get up and preach. And then afterwards, I was talking with my wife and a friend of ours. And I said, "Guys, I really believe the Lord told me that the shift is here." My wife's jaw about hit the ground. And she said the Lord told her the exact same thing. And so we knew that it was time. Strangely, it didn't make sense. Why start a ministry that is only around for 2.5 years? And but we had to obey the Lord. Well, so we made the decision to go ahead and shift. I had a dream then several days later. This is very recent now. Um, and in the dream, I was in a kind of a an entertainment district, nighttime, kind of a nightclub feel. And I was on a stage that was kind of in the round, and there were people all around, and even kind of up levels, hanging over balconies. And there I am on the stage with lights on me and all of this. And I knew that I had to perform. And strangely, I felt I was supposed to be doing some Michael Jackson dance moves and moonwalks and doing, which that is not in me. And I'm like, this is so uncomfortable. This is not what I want to do. This is not right. And I knew that was just kind of, that was out of, this is not right anymore. And it shifted, and I felt in the dream that I was supposed to get on an airplane and fly, and I didn't know where, I didn't know what was going on. And so I'm frantic, and it was like 12 minutes before the flight was going to take off. And this little entertainment district, of course, like as dreams go, is connected right to the terminal of an airport. And so I'm there with my wife, and I have my two suitcases. One of the suitcases falls over and busts open. All my stuff is everywhere. The other one gets lost. I can't find it, and I'm freaking out. I'm like, I gotta go, I gotta go. I told my wife, I say, you can take the next flight after me, bring my suitcases. And so I go running. And I'm like, I've got to get some stuff. So I go into a little pharmacy or one of those little airport shops, and I'm getting a toothbrush and toothpaste and deodorant. I'm getting all this stuff, and I have no bag. I have no way to carry it. Time's ticking. I'm like, I can't do this. And I just dropped all of that stuff. And I knew that I had to get on this airplane with nothing that I thought that I would need, leaving everything that was in my previous season behind, and just with the clothes on my back. And I was getting on the airplane. As I was getting on the airplane, which airplanes represent ministry, vehicles represent ministry. As I was getting on the airplane, I started to wake up. And as I woke up, um, I heard that I was flying to a town called Oil, Wisconsin. And I'm like, I woke up. I'm like, what in the world? What is that? Oil makes sense, I guess. Yeah. But Wisconsin, I'm thinking, please God, not Wisconsin, please. It's cold up there, and the Packers are up there. No, no, no. And please God, no. And I want to go south, not north, if anything. And so I shared this with my wife, and we looked up what Wisconsin means, and it means a water running through the red, basically water running through the red. So now I have oil, water, and blood. And it was very evident that the Lord's saying that you are shifting direction dramatically from the way things have been. So I don't have all the answers yet. I do feel that marketplace and business and some of that's going to be part of it. I do believe that intercession and prayer is going to be a huge part of it, but the way it's been is different. So that's an example. It's a big, a current kind of example of how I try to follow breadcrumbs.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I'm a big dreamer. The Lord speaks in significant ways. Most of our prophetic impartation and the way that we release strength and encouragement to our marketplace partners is actually through dreams and pictures that we see. Uh, and so I love dreams. So as soon as you started talking about that, I'm like I'm just intrigued. So I love how God speaks through dreams. Um, we've been able to partner with a whole bunch of different kinds of partners in different industries, but one of the um, one of the businesses that we're able to partner with is a uh, they're a commerce business, and so they buy a whole bunch of products from overseas, and then they have clients like the dollar store, Dollar General, and some of those others, and so they buy products from China, Taiwan, other places in the world, and then they ship them across the ocean, and they have buyers that buy whole shipping containers. So they have an entire boat that's just full of hundreds of shipping containers of products. And then each one of those shipping containers is going to a different customer of theirs on stateside. And a couple of our uh, prayer journeys that we've been has been around missing shipping containers. And shipping containers sometimes and can disappear in a myriad of different ways. They can sometimes they're not secured properly and they can fall off the boat in the middle of the sea, or they can in the unloading process somebody didn't check the right box and they just got stored in the wrong place. But a million things can go wrong from China to America and or wherever they came from. And so one time, a shipping container with a whole bunch of very expensive products disappeared, and they had no idea where it disappeared from. But we began to pray, and we mobilized our team to pray that the shipping container would manifest. So it got into the port of LA, and all of a sudden we discovered this one shipping container, about $30,000 worth of product, was gone. We couldn't find it anywhere. And so 2 weeks later, the customer reported to my because we said, hey, by the way, hey, we're sending you these shipping containers, but unfortunately one of them was gone, so we can't find it. It's nowhere on our manifest anywhere. It's just completely gone. 2 weeks later, the truck shows up and puts the shipping container in front of the store that purchased it and pulled away and left. We don't know who the trucking company was. It just appeared in front of the store one day. Have
Wow.
no idea where it came from. I believe, I don't know what really happened, but the Lord does crazy, amazing miracles. That's just one. I have a 20-page document of miracle after miracle after miracle that God just showed up in the marketplace. Like, God really cares about our bottom line profit margin. God
Sure.
really is concerned with how we are providing for our families and creating, like you said, a lot of times people just really are experiencing life. They're experiencing the love of God, even though we're not preaching. So I'd love to hear, I don't know, maybe you don't have one, but I would love very much if you could think of a time where it's like there's no other way in my business. There was no other way except God showed up. So I don't know, do you have one of those crazy stories?
Yeah, I mean, well, this wasn't necessarily in business, but when we were in Detroit, um, or I'm sorry, we were in Kansas City with the International House of Prayer, and the Lord had directed us to move to Detroit. It was almost an impossible situation. So we had very little money, and when you are a kind of a prayer missionary, you're living off support. I was doing a little graphic design as a business to make some money, and we had very little money, and the Lord had called me to start traveling to Detroit, and they would fly me out several times, and I was going and preaching, and just God was blowing up, and prophetic stuff was happening. It was incredible, and felt that it was time for us to move there. Well, this was right during the financial collapse in 2008, 2009. And so we owned a house, which was miraculous in and of itself that we were able to even own a house in that kind of condition, you know. And that's when they were giving loans basically, you know, on a signature. Well, now it was time for us to sell a house. Things were changing, the economy was crashed, and we had just bought the house recently. There was no margin for any um drop in the price or anything. And so my wife puts out a fleece. She says, all right, God, if you want us to move to Detroit, you're gonna have to sell this house. We're gonna put it on the market tomorrow. I need it sold tomorrow, full price. Which, it doesn't get more crazy than that. Well, we put the house on the market the next day, received an offer that day, full price, no haggling at all. Boom, it was gone. Our realtor, who was a believer, she said, it's impossible. It happened, John. You need to know that this was God. And it was God. And we loaded up the truck, drove to Detroit, had no idea where we were going to go, parked the truck in an open field, the moving truck, and frantically tried to find a place to rent. And again, I threw it up. I said, all right, Lord, I'm tired of looking. Things aren't coming together. We can't leave this truck in Detroit in a field. We need to find a place. And I said, the next place we see is the place we're getting. And boy, was it. We found this spot that was absolutely incredible. And, you know, the rest is history. And so there's stories like that, you know, where you know, God has to come through. You know, when we started our business, it was a God thing, and we launched that thing in very quickly, and it was tenacious. And my wife was thinking of kind of pulling the plug on it because of all of the red tape and the stuff that we didn't really expect, and all the code and all the expense was piling up and all the stuff. And there was just a surge of faith. I'm like, nope, we're gonna do this. We can do it. Let's do it. We did it, and kind of the rest is history with that one. And so there's a lot of different things like that that happen, you know, whether it's ministry or marketplace.
Yeah, no, that's right. That's right. And I think a lot of times what we do, and I'm even feeling like the Lord is bringing a course correction, because I'm even feeling like I'm beginning to lean in that direction, is we operate so much under assignment base. Like, the thing that God is doing in and through me right now is marketplace environments and leading and relating. But God is so multifaceted. He's doing things on so many. I mean, we like to play chess, and God's like, yeah, awesome, except for I'm playing 15 dimensional chess. I mean, it's not just three dimensions, you know. We're talking about, you know, I'm infinite. So I'm playing 15 dimensional chess all of the time. And so I'm like, okay, Lord, what are you doing? What are you saying? And most of the people that are listeners here to the prayer focus, they're in the marketplace, and they're like, God has given me an assignment to the marketplace. I'm a kingdom outpost in the marketplace. So what do you think that the Spirit is saying? How can we, right now in this moment, how can we serve marketplace leaders, and what is the Spirit saying to people who are leading in the marketplace right now?
Yeah, I really think pastors and ministers need to encourage more than ever marketplace, um, you know, ministry, being entrepreneurs, business owners. Boy, I sure would love to see that in the church where it was normalized. And man, the church would benefit from that if there's suddenly millionaires all over the place because of successful businesses. When I was in Manitou Springs, the biggest giver to my church was a computer programmer for FedEx, and he was making, you know, triple digits, and he was a faithful giver. And he came to me one day and he said, John, I want to bring this to you. I will see what you think about it. I really believe the Lord has given me kind of some insight on day trading stocks, and I'm starting to see some success with that. In order to really give myself to that, I'm thinking about quitting my job at FedEx. My initial reaction was, God, no, please, because I really appreciated his faithful FedEx tithe, but of course, I said, well, I got your back. I support you. If you feel this is the Lord. Well, long story short, he did make the transition. I would sit with him in his little office that he rented with like 5 computer screens with stock charts, all over the place. And I would watch this awesome casual dude in shorts and flip-flops and make 15, 20, $25,000 a day trading. I would watch it. I would sit there and I would watch it. I would watch the money coming in. And it was like an ATM. He said, John, this is like an ATM. And he ended up becoming unbelievably wealthy, bought a big old mansion, built a water park in his backyard. And it's stuff like that that just blows my mind. I think we need to get comfortable with the idea of kingdom wealth. There's so much garbage out there that has turned so many people off from the idea of financial success, and unfortunately that has happened. But we've got to kind of right the ship and understand that God absolutely loves to do that. And there's a certain type of a person, or a person who is called to live that type of a life as an entrepreneur, or somebody that is able to, they know how to invest, they know how to develop wealth, and it's for the kingdom. And by the way, it's not only for the kingdom. God does like to bless individuals financially. It's not, you hear people, you ask people the question, so what if God, you won the lottery, you won $10 million right now. Oh, I'd be giving almost all of it away. You don't have to do that. You can give some of it away. You tithe on it or give that way, but definitely invest a ton of it. Multiply this thing. Consider the parable of the talents, and then you can go on vacation if you want. You can enjoy it. Listen to the Lord. What's He saying? But I think we have a poverty mindset even in the prosperity camp sometimes.
I get to run relatively closely to some people that have differing opinions on how I think God is orchestrating His government in the earth. And there's direct places that I have disagreement. One of uh, uh, the most articulate, the person who carries that I feel for me, the most revelation of the Father's heart is Johnny and Elizabeth Enlow. And I get to walk very closely with them. We're their intercessors for their organization. And he has an amazing, he's written some amazing books on what kingdom looks like in society. And one of the things that he always says is God is not looking for someone to be his ATM. He's actually looking for people to bless and to express his character and nature as a generous people. And I so love that perspective because one of the most influential people on the planet right now for transforming societies is Johnny Enlow, and he actually is saying, "Hey, this actually isn't about God building His kingdom. He actually doesn't need your help. It's about God blessing people, and He's given you a specific assignment. He's given you a message. He's given you something to trumpet. God really just wants to bless your socks off."
Yeah, I mean, I'm sitting here at Silver Dollar City right now. This is an unapologetically Christian owned company, and if I'm not mistaken, I could be mistaken, but if I'm not mistaken, they're a $1 billion company now. They just bought like 20 new theme parks and properties. They are thriving. That's not even the word. I mean, they're exploding. And just a little while ago, I was up in the Wilderness Church. And they're up there having a hymn sing along, and they're worshiping Jesus. There's another show here, Spoken For, and they're leading worship, in that show. And it's such a wholesome, healthy place. Are they preaching, from the rooftops here? No, but boy, they don't hold back either. And you see how God has prospered this organization, and it's incredible. I mean, the president of Silver Dollar City's a hardcore believer, and just people all over the park that are just intercessors and just rock solid, just Christians, and it's incredible. And I just think, we can de-religify, is that a word? Uh,
It is
um,
now.
it is now, kind of the whole thing. And it's like, you know what? Yeah, I value the church. I preach on it and teach on it all the time. That's a whole other conversation. We need reformation in the church. The apostles and prophets and all of that, really, really important. But man, the expression of the kingdom of God in a place like this, or in a place like my business, or so many other places, it's legit. And more than being legit, it's something that the average person can at least come close to understanding. They may not agree with it, but they're like, okay, you're real. Silver Dollar City is a real place. It's a great place. Escape Code, my business, great place. They're doing something right, and I want to be there, and it feels healthy and it feels good. I like the vibe. There's something about it, and it's not like they're walking into some church with a finger pointed in their face. It's something they can relate to.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, in our last few moments here, I want to kind of transition our conversation to talk about things that sometimes aren't as it's not as fun to talk about, but I feel like it's what the Lord is doing. Um, and it's important to me, and I always try to have this conversation in the midst of having these types of conversations, because I lead several businesses. I lead a thriving real estate investment firm, and we have several employees and agents that work with us, and I love making money. We lead a nonprofit, Co-Rain, and we're leading and relating and helping people grow in prayer and helping people make an impact and a difference in the marketplace. I love every aspect of what I get to do. One of the things that I just now have been able to do is to start a club, a group around uh, other Christian entrepreneurs and business leaders who are leading and relating in the business environment, but they don't necessarily have a whole lot of relationship, and a lot of people don't necessarily understand their day-to-day problems and their journey. And so I put together a couple of my friends just invited their friends, and we have a group of about 30 that meet once a month for worship and prayer and connection. We share donuts and coffee and we catch up on life. But all of those gentlemen that come to our office is a big office space, and we have a couple of different conference rooms. I have a small office suite that where my studio is in, but I have 20 offices right outside the door right here, and then two really big, really nice conference rooms. And so we have 30 people that are here, and they're like, man, I just don't get this at church. The connect point, the hey, how are you? What's going on with your life? Tell me about your kids. Tell me what's going on with your company and your team. Is like, this piece is the piece I didn't know that I needed, but I so love this, and it feels like my soul is secure in knowing that someone sees me, someone values me, and they know what's going on in my life. They know what I need. And then we do these text message threads. Hey, how's it going with you? How can I be praying for you? But everybody says the piece that I'm missing in my overall program right now is relationship, the friendship, the deep friendship of people knowing who I am and can pray for me and reach out to me. So I really have two questions. Why is it difficult for the local church to do relationship in this way? And how important are these type of peer on peer type relationships in building the kingdom in the marketplace?
Yeah, I think it's important. Why is it difficult in a church setting? I think a lot of times, well, there's boy, that's a big topic. I think a lot of times it's the focus of the church. It's the end goal. And sadly the end goal sometimes is is just to have the big crowds and the kind of the momentum. Why are church services now an hour long or an hour and a half long? Why aren't we, you know, lingering together? Well, because of the busy society that we live in. And so we cater to what people think they want, and they want to get in, they want to get out, they want to have a quick touch point, a quick opportunity to worship. They want it to be vibrant and alive. They've got all the checks that they're on their list, and and pastors typically know what they want, and so does a hour and a half service a week pay the bills, and does it accomplish the goal of growing a church? Yeah, it does sometimes, but I think we're kidding ourselves in terms of that being enough. It's crazy to think that that's enough. I think also that the church needs to have reformation in terms of the way that it's structured. Um, I believe pastors, what you're talking about, really is a pastored environment, and where there's relationship and where there's connection and all of that's happening. I believe that environment can be I don't want to use the word separate, but separate, I guess, from the large apostolic prophetic gathering. Yeah, let's meet together for 2 hours or 3 hours or however long it is and pray and contend. And it's more vertical than horizontal. And we can, release oracles from heaven and just sharp prophetic words. And we can pray. We can do all this stuff, but that's not enough. It's foundational. From there, I believe, you got apostles and prophets leading that. From there, the pastors are taking over. You've got small groups of 10, 20, 30, and you're doing the stuff like you're talking about. And I just think with the model of church that we have today doesn't really lend itself. We could see kind of a little bit of it with small groups and things like that, and that's good. But I think it needs to be even go beyond that in terms of the reformation that's needed in the church, because um, the Sunday morning service is by and far the only touch point for the majority of Christians. That's all they want. That's all they need. Well, we've got to develop a model where it's like, you know what? That's insufficient in and of itself. There's more. And so it's
Yes.
a big topic to unpack, but that's for
Yeah.
starters.
Yeah. It's just surprised me, all of these people that come here to our what we call catalyst kingdom catalyst group. Is We didn't even know really what to call it. We're like, let's gather as business leaders and let's worship and pray together and build spiritual friendships. And it's like I didn't know what I was doing, but I had this pull in my own heart of needing authentic relationships that people knew me and I could know what's going on in their life. I could pray for them. They would know what's going on in my life and they could pray for me. And so there was this thing that I needed. I needed people in my life that had an affinity. They knew what was my struggles and celebrations. And so I needed people in a similar season of life of me. So I did it because I needed it. And then all of a sudden, these guys have been going to church. I ask every one of them, run around the room. I said, hey, how long have you been going to church at your church and how long have you been involved in church environments? Every one of them, my entire life. I got saved at 7. And I'm like, what is the biggest need that you feel like in your life right now? And every one of them said friendships. I love
Wow.
my church. I love my pastor. He's a great articulate. I love what's happening at the church. But my need right now is friendships. I need a friend who knows what's going on in my life and can pray for me. Every one of them. And I've
Wow.
done these surveys across multiple cities. It's like, as a business leader, what is your number one need that you feel like you need right now? Every one of them said spiritual friendships that can pray for me, that I can pray for.
Yeah, that's
And
good.
and so I'm like, okay, how do I become the answer? How do we become the solution to what the heart cry is and that's not a fleshly thing. I mean, that's someone who's actually um pursuing the things of the Lord. And that's some things that they're saying, hey, my biggest spiritual need right now is authentic friendships. So what do you think? And I'll give you the last word and then that'll be it for today. But John, what do you think the solution is to the heart cry of the people? My biggest spiritual need is authentic friendships.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting, and we live in a everything's social nowadays. Social media, social everything, and the emerging generations all about social, all about friendships, and I believe I may not even be the right guy to answer this question because believe it or not, I'm an introvert, or I'm not extreme introvert, but I'm a little bit over the line, and so I value my personal time, I value alone time, and I've shared with my wife that for me, one or two solid friends is awesome, just incredible. Now there's others that they just want a room full of friends. And so the question is what do they need? And clearly what you're telling me is people want friendship, and especially in with everything being social, it's interesting that that's what they're saying. It's like, well, is not doesn't social rule the world right now? Not really. I think people are feeling pretty alone, is what I'm getting. And how do we answer that question beyond what I already shared? I'm not totally sure. I do not believe. I'll say this: I do not believe the answer is abandoning the church for the sake of just doing like small groups or home groups. I hear about that a lot. People like, well, I didn't get what I wanted in the church, so I'm just going to gather in my living room and do my own thing. And well, gather in your living room and do your thing. That's good, but I believe there's more to it. Is the point? There's so much more to it. And so you can knee jerk one way or knee jerk the other way, but there's a healthy, appropriate balance to it. We have not found it. I might not be the guy to have that perfect answer for you, um, but it's legit. I've been in ministry 30 years, and it's legit. People are craving, you know, relationships and going deeper and being understood, and they really are. How we get there, I might need to interview you on that one, but because I think you might have the answers better than I do.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know either. I'm groping in the dark. I am looking because it is something that I've been a churchman. I'm third generation pastor. I've been either on staff at churches or and leading in pioneering and planting churches my entire life. And so I love what God is doing in the church. I think it's important and valuable to gather together. I do think we need reformation. I don't know that we've gotten there yet, but I do know that God celebrates our development and there's a whole cloud of witness cheering us on. But I do believe that God is doing something significant with a heart cry. It's like God heard the cry. We see that throughout the Bible. God heard the cry of the people. And so I think there is a heart cry that is a spirit born heart cry for deep, authentic relationships. And I think that we just need to lean in and discover what God is saying to us in our season and in our location and do that wholeheartedly.
I agree. I agree.
Amen. Amen. Well, John, let me just give you the floor for a second and just encourage business leaders and marketplace influencers and just take 90 seconds and just give them the full weight of what you feel like the Lord is saying.
Yeah. I mean, my heart is. I believe this. I believe that we're in a transitional season. I know that for sure. Not just me. I'm talking about you know um, the world in which we live. The church is in a transitional season, and I believe we need to be very, very alert. I've seen some things, just some different prophetic voices out there talking about transition, and it's a very important season. I read one the other day where we need to use wisdom, be very careful in this transition, trust that the Lord is working, He's doing something, and in these seasons, it's very chaotic, it's very confusing sometimes, but He will. order our steps. He will do that. I am excited about what's coming. I mean, I know for me that I would not be able to step into whatever I'm supposed to step into if I hung on to Revival X, as a local gathering place. I mean, Revival X will continue online, but if I didn't shift, then I would not be able to step into what I'm stepping into. I'm excited about God raising up some catalytic people that will help give some definition just to the transition at whole. I believe there's going to be some, how do you want to say, just prophetic entrepreneurs. I mean, people out there that are going to help just advance this thing, and I'm excited about that. I like you, groping in the dark. I think that's a lot of people right now. I don't have the answers, but part of being a believer and being a prophetic believer, you have to kind of learn how to do that almost as part of your normal life, because a lot of our time is going to be spent in the unknown or in the in between. And if we don't navigate the unknown, we don't navigate the in between. We don't navigate those waters. We go into a new land. Well, you're not at the new land yet. You're navigating the waters. Well, that's a big part of it. The journey's important, and so we've got to learn how to do that. And but I know there is a new land. I know there is a promised land. I know there are giants coming down or walls falling down. I know all this stuff's coming, but we're not there yet.
Yeah, that's super good. Well, John, I really appreciate your time and your wisdom and your anointing of what you carry and what you're going after. It's super valuable that we get a manifold impartation from many different voices of what God is doing and saying. And so I love interviewing each and every person that I get to interview is really fun because I get to hear what God is saying through the eyes and the heart of leaders around the nation, around the world, working in different environments. And people like you are very unique because you have both of your feet planted firmly in the marketplace and in the church world. And I believe that that's what the Lord is doing, is raising up fivefold ministry leaders in the marketplace. And I love that your apostolic, prophetic kind of bend in the marketplace is exactly what your city and our generation needs. So thank you very much for your time. And I appreciate your expertise, and your perspective has been very enlightening for me. I learned something today. I appreciate you.
All right. Yeah, me too. Thanks for having me. This has been really good.
Good. Awesome. Well, thanks, guys, for listening to another episode of the Prayer Focus podcast. We appreciate your comments, and we'd love to hear feedback on how you experience this conversation, what the Lord spoke to you. Those are really important to us so that we can grow and learn from you. As in much as we're imparting, we're expecting the Lord for an impartation from you. What you have to say is valuable and important, and it is part of our journey of learning to lead and relate in our kingdom assignment. So we'd love your feedback. And until next time, remember that only you have the voice that God gave you, and only you can release the message that God gave you. So be blessed, and we'll see you on the next episode. Bless you.